So this is Baruch here, and it's time for us to get into the next year of the ultimate connection with God, the seven-step guide to Jewish spirituality, written by Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran. So this is a primer Jewish mystical meditation. And one of the things that a person has to know about Judaism, which is different than maybe other religions, I'm not sure, Judaism is meant to be practiced daily, so that people who are going to learn how to really communicate with God on a daily basis and try to actually have some connection to eternity all the time, not so easy, have to work at it. So Rabbi Mimran is giving us a little practical guide into how to get into mystical meditation. Now, before we start the next little piece, which is part 5, he says, which says, who am I? How am I? I'm not really sure how that works, but he says, how am I? So he said, let's look at the last blurb that he brought to us the last time. He told us this idea. It's possible to break through our thought processes and the world as we see it, with all the things we have to do and defend ourselves from it and try to be able to produce and survive. He says it's possible to break through that, and he's giving us different pieces of advice on how to do that. He said feelings of pure joy and peace cannot truly thrive until you have freed yourself of the dominance of your mind. Let's go over to this thing that says, how am I? Let me see if I can get a little bit support here. So it says, he's quoting here from Rabbi Yaakov Salki. He's a student of the Rashba, and this is one of the drushes that he made over there. He says that if you're going to take Judaism seriously, you have to learn how to distance yourself from all who waste their time with only world affairs and distract you attaching yourself to your creator. Now, if you think about this, is what Rabbi Nachman says, is that a person has to be able to be misguided in a place which is quiet and personal. You could do it in your own seat, really. You could do it amidst other people if you want. But it has to be your own personal enclosure that you make for yourself to be able to begin to speak and to begin to get involved with the dialogue with God. He said, rather attach yourself to your maker, call him and call out to him, who is called the source of the living waters. So that's an interesting idea. Let me bring this back a little bit so I could see the page better. And we go like this. He says, as we will discuss later on, there are various Jewish meditations found in ancient Kabbalistic writings. One such method is based on reaching the level of nothingness, or ayin, or ain, which will be explained. Ain means nothing. He said this meditation on nothingness opened the door to prophecy. It can also be used to get in touch with the innermost self. Okay, I'll buy the idea that you could get to a level of nothingness. This, of course, raises the question, what is the nature of the self? Normally, when a person thinks of himself, the first thing he thinks of is his body. It is almost a reflex action. Ask a person to point to himself, and he will almost inevitably point to his chest. Perhaps, if he is more perceptive, he will point to his head, the seat of the brain, seeing the brain as being more representative of the self than the body. The Kabbalists point out that the body is not the self. Since I can speak of my body, the body cannot be me. The body is mine, it belongs to me, something associated with the me. But the ultimate me is something much more profound than the body. Using the same argument, I can also speak of my mind. Indeed, I speak of my mind just as I speak of my body. This would imply that just as the body is not the real me, the mind is also not the real me. Carrying the argument a step further, I can even speak of my soul. This would imply that even the soul is not the real me. This being the case, the question of selfhood becomes very difficult indeed to understand who am I? What does the real me? A hint to the answer can be found in the Hebrew word for I, which is the word ani, which is a gematria of what? 1161. It is significant to note that if the letters of ani are rearranged, they spell the word ayin, or nothing. So he wants to say, and this is a technique which the Kabbalists do use in specific places, to rearrange the letters to tell you that the basic form is the same, which denotes nothingness. Ayin means nothing. This would seem to imply that the real me is the nothingness within me. Now, how do I access that? This can be understood in a fairly straightforward manner. The real me is my sense of volition, that is the choice, the vision, the ability to make choices. It is the intangible will that impels me to do whatever I decide to do. So there is something behind thinking and feeling that is directional. And that's what he says, will. This is the concept of kavanah. What do you want to do? Well, you could choose. That chooser can choose, well, let's see. Even if I think I must first will myself to think, if I have to really force myself to think, in that sense, which will is even higher than thought. So in other words, you can cause yourself to think, and that element that causes the cause is the real you. It's higher than thought because you can make yourself think. It is therefore impossible for me to imagine the source of my will, and there is no category in my conscious mind in which it will fit. He says, this is my will. Will is passive. Therefore, when I try to imagine the source of my will, the real me, all I can depict is nothingness. Very interesting. This can be also understood in a deeper manner. He says, if the most basic ingredient of self is will, then this also must be connected to the divine will. Hashem wants me to learn Torah. So I want to learn Torah. That's my desire. That's my will. But he says it's connected to a higher will. In this sense, a person's will comes from the spark of the divine in the person himself. Therefore, when a person visualizes nothingness, he is to some degree in touch with the divine within himself. He says this can be understood on the basis of Kabbalistic teachings that the highest spiritual levels can be understood only in terms of nothingness. When a person visualizes nothingness, he is to some degree in touch with the divine within himself. This is Baruch Fleischman, Tikkun Elevator Kolo. This has been Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran, teaching us little by little Jewish mystical meditation.